everybody, and welcome back to another Star Wars Legion report card video. Today we are going to be talking about Republic Special Forces. Not a ton of options going on here, but once again, let's cover them. So first off, we have the ARC Troopers. This is the full ARC Trooper team coming in at 72 points. They are 4 models a pop with 1 health, 2 courage, red defense dice, impervious, scout 2, sharpshooter 1, and tactical 1. They got black and white melee, a black and white at range 1 to 2, and a black at range 1 to 3. So these guys are pretty cool. I think these are some of the cooler models in the game, and I know a lot of people love ARC Troopers just because of the aesthetic, but let's kind of talk about how they fall off on the competitive side of things. So tactical allows for great move shoot opportunities. This is going to be really good for keeping them behind a line of sight blocker and then popping them out into range 3 or even range 2. And using that aim from that movement to get a great shot, especially with you adding something like Sharp 1 onto that. Those dice pulls can be pretty impressive. Courage 2 also helps them feel like an elite unit that's not getting bogged down by those yellow tokens. Impervious helps them survive some of those more infamous pierce shots and lightsaber swings from time to time. More dice at range 2 is pretty cool. The extra white dice on all those blasters is really good, and the more dice you're throwing at your opponent, the better. So it's a very rewarding feeling for a unit that is looking to most likely move and shoot most turns, so you can almost kind of march these ARC Troopers up towards your opponent and get better dice pulls as you do so. Cons, these guys are overpriced, in my opinion at least. The dice pool feels weak. The one I like to compare it to is the full Rebel Commando team with the sniper. Just for how much you're paying for ARC Troopers getting around that 100-point value range, they just really don't quite do a ton, especially when we're talking about a range 3 dice pool with Echo or even just the generic sniper rifle or even 5s. You know, we're talking 5, 6 dice, maybe 7. They don't surge. Sharp 1, aim is great, but you're going to find yourself looking at 3 after cover, maybe Pierce 1 if you don't need to reroll dice. These guys need a little bit of support from other token generation to feel elite, and they are supposed to be elite from the get-go. So that's easily my biggest con. Every model loss just kind of adds to that as well. It's like your dice pool's not that amazing, and then every time you lose one, it just hurts that much more. You really start to feel cool once you get into range 2, but there's just not a lot of games where these guys are going to go unscathed, closing that kind of distance. I still love these guys. I love the aesthetic, but I do think they're definitely lacking for their price, and they could probably just use a little bit of love. So let's talk about the strike team. The strike team is the heavy weapon team. They have to take a heavy weapon. They have impervious as well, scout 2 as well, sharp, and tactical 1 as well. Red defense dice, 2 courage, 1 health. Everything else is the same as well. Sniper options, always solid. Range 5 options really help you with distancing. Sharp 1 adds to that. Echo makes these guys really good. I think Echo strike team is pretty solid for sure. Echo in the full ARC team is also good, don't get me wrong. But Echo definitely makes a very compelling case to bring one strike team with him in it. Cons, I think these guys are easily the worst sniper in the game. I don't think it's a competition. If you get in any type of matchup with armor, dodges, or more dodges, you are never going to kill a single model with these guys because the sniper, as we will see in a second, does not have high velocity, and it's a red and a black that does not surge. And you get the pierce value, you have to spend an aim, meaning that if you're not getting 2 hits, these guys' value is drastically lower than the other snipers in the game. So I just feel like a lot of games these guys can feel 100% useless. 5s could go in the strike team. Not saying it's a bad idea. It's just interesting because you might just put them on a phase 1 instead and make it courage 2. Up to you though. Looking at these upgrades, hopefully this will help explain why I think they're so bad as a sniper unit. The ARC Troopers, black and a red, immune to deflect, lethal 1. I mean, those are fine, but like I said, dodges, if you're not getting both hits, it's just literally useless. And unfortunately, we're talking about a faction that can share tokens, so sure, you can say, well, I have surges and other aims for my other units. That's great. You could share dice for this, maybe 1 dice to get through Pierce 1, or we could share dice for, you know, an entire Z6 shot with 12 dice, and ooh, let's fire support it into a bar, surging to hit, then let's share those tokens. But if we're sharing tokens for maybe 1 dice to get past cover, and that's if they don't have dodges, that's what feels bad. Echo, on the other hand, has what made these guys so strong back in the day, which is critical 1, on top of some other things like reliable 1, 2 health, a red and a red for his shot, lethal 1 still, immune to deflect. So Echo is actually just the remnant of the former glory of ARC troopers, because that critical 1 used to make them absolutely busted, but they don't have that anymore, right? So this is what we're looking at. But Echo's actually a solid choice, and if you want to justify bringing a strike team as a sniper unit, Echo is 100% the way to go. He can share these tokens. That surge token will come up way more than you think it will, and 5s in a strike team, go for it, I guess, but not my cup of tea. Would not recommend it. Wookie Warriors, give them a C+ in the Republic faction, to be specific. They come in at 69 starting cost with Charge, Duelist, Indomitable, Scale, Rip Scale, 3 health apiece, 2 courage, and white defense dice. They search to hit, not to defend. Start off with 3 models. 2 black and melee, and a black and a white at range 1 to 2. So Wookiees can kind of play a backliner for the Republic, which is good, but they also have tons of good force user options to do the exact same thing and probably do it better, but nonetheless, they can play that role. In a faction that I feel like, unironically, is kind of keen on sticking together and sitting in a ball, clone ball, right? You can just toss a Wookie Warrior in there and be like, okay, well, if you want to dive into my clones, these Wookiees may eat you alive. That's pretty much the vibe I get from the Gar side of things in terms of Wookiees. Melee, very strong, very good, hard hitters for sure, and fire support possibilities are quite good with Wookie Warriors even. We'll look at some of the upgrades, but even a range 2 shot is somehow better than the range 3 shot. I know that the range Wookiees have sharpshooter 1, but we're talking a black and a white instead of 2 whites. So if you can get into range 2 and you can't quite make that charge, it's not a bad idea to fire support like something like a Z6. We're talking about a beefed up bark fire support, especially when we had aims or maybe even the Wookiee crossbow for impact and pierce 1. We're talking about a shot that can wipe out most units in the game. So very solid in that aspect. Problem is the Gar specific issue across the board is they're just expensive. And if you're taking a full Wookiee unit, you're not taking something else. And I just think there are other things this faction has to offer that does not include these guys for the same cost. Scale as well. Scale just took a hit. That's what made the Wookiee so fast and good. And it was honestly probably even better in Gar because you could get good fire supports and maybe catch someone out of cover or have that fast unit that Guard maybe doesn't necessarily have besides maybe Barks or Jedi, yada yada. Gone. Not dead, but definitely different. Once again, Wookiees, in my opinion, are very map dependent. We're talking giant firing lanes. That's going to be really rough for these guys to get in, especially when we're talking about a faction like Republic that doesn't necessarily thrive at range 4 to 5. You certainly can try, but they have less options than most. And they just have little synergy with the faction. Like, yes, you could use Exemplar, Padme stuff, Obi-Wan Guardian, Yoda tokens to give these guys those things, but you can do the same thing with the clones, and more importantly, the clones can share with each other. So, I say little synergy. Obviously, there's things like the Wookiee Chieftain and Chewbacca that have their cards, but it almost feels like a separate faction sometimes when I'm doing something like Wookiees and clones. It's like, okay, here's my 3 cards for clones, and here's my 3 cards for Wookiees. Cool. And so one turn it's like, okay, clone turn, Wookiee turn, clone turn, Wookiee turn. So, I don't know. Just not a very interesting fit in most of my Gar lists, but they are still solid. There's nothing wrong with them, and they can absolutely wreck a lot of stuff. Looking at the shooting Wookiees, we have Indomitable Scale, Sharpshooter 1, also a C+, coming in at 72 points. Everything else is the same except for their Carbine and their Melee. Melee is black and white instead, and the range 3, 2 white. Pros, solid fire support platform, no doubt. If you can step into range 3 with these guys and, fire support a Z6 or an RPS or whatever else it is, that is a devastating shot. And I've actually tried these guys a decent amount of times in the Gar faction, and I think there's definitely some play to be had. It's just, once again, they're a giant HP pool, they're surge to hit, they're sharp 1. That's what the clones like. They like to not have to spend their tokens, they like to get those keywords and things that they don't have on the generic dudes cards, like surging to hit. So that's very good for them, and it makes a great dice pool. Cons, they need tokens, they need aims, support, whatever it is, to stay alive, or better yet, just kind of hit their target, because, talking about starting with 6 white, maybe adding another in a red for the crossbow, or 2 blacks, that's not a crazy dice pool when we're adding that upgrade cost in there, on top of maybe another 6 white from a Z6 or something like that. we're talking about a dice pool that can be extremely swingy. So things like precision scopes, aims, hunter, whatever you can find, tack push, is going to be kind of a necessity on these dudes to make sure you have consistency. Otherwise, you're going to be kind of just chunking a massive handful of meh dice and hoping for the best. Once again, range 3. Shooting units at range 3 are not bad, and this is definitely the definition of a powerhouse when we're talking about the fire supporting aspect at least. But still, there's just a lot of things in the game that are going to plink away at them as they move up, and more importantly, once they get there, they're also going to be able to hit back really hard against a unit that does not have any defensive qualities whatsoever. But we can look at their upgrades. The shield Wookie for the armor 1, the black, reducing it to speed 1, and then the 2 red and the offensive mode. That's fine for the melee unit. I don't know why you would ever take that on the other one, or on the shooty Wookie. Maybe interesting to do like the armor one at range 3, give them some more defense, but I think the keywords are what the clone faction misses a lot of times from their shots, so getting something like the bowcaster Wookie is going to be pretty solid. Unfortunately, it's also quite expensive, but you could argue it's quite worth it as well, even on the melee Wookiees, to get into range 2, impact 1, pierce 1, 3 black, 1 red, 4 white, with a Z6 or RPS or whatever it is you have. That's a pretty devastating shot, and it's going to kill a lot of units in the game and give you a ton of value. So absolutely nothing wrong with that whatsoever. I think it's a great mechanic and a great welcoming keyword combo into the faction itself. I think the bowcaster Wookiee fits very well in the Republic. Adding Pierce is huge, adding Impact is huge. Long gun Wookiee, suppressive range 1 to 4, 2 black dice. That's just a solid, cheaper version of what we just talked about. Suppressive's fine. Nothing wrong with that whatsoever. The range 1 to 4 I feel like will never really come into play, except for when you really need to add that 2 suppression to someone specific. But for the most part, I think that still a solid choice. It just is lacking some of those keywords that the clones are kind of begging for at times. So, summary, it just feels kind of lackluster. We're talking about one of the cooler, aesthetically pleasing factions in the game. Probably a lot of people's favorites. As Legion grows, people are expecting more and more things, which thankfully we've seen things like the Bad Batch coming up. So, it does feel a little lackluster to me. Gar's definitely my favorite faction in terms of lore and everything like that, but when I go to their special forces, I don't really get excited, if that makes sense. So it's not like they're not cool units either, it's just they feel very lackluster, and I think that's the best way to put it. Cool options, not good options. Once again, going along this aesthetically pleasing thing here, like, oh, the Wookiees look so cool, they're massive, they tear people up, the ARC Troopers look so stylish, super tactical, they're just not that great. Errata was good for the arcs, don't get me wrong. I know we've seen some success with them in things like 501st, but we're not talking about 501st, we're talking about them. And when I'm talking about them and isolating them, those couple points shaven off makes them playable, in my opinion. I quite literally think they were one of the worst units in the game before that. But they are a solid middle of the road unit, just a little bit less for what's going on right now in terms of the game and big dice pools and what the Gar faction has to offer. It didn't save them, made them playable, but did not make them good. They're all super fun units though. If you love the aesthetically pleasing side of the Wookiees or Arcs, or they're just your favorite thing, please play them, because they are actually super fun to play. And that's what's important to me. Moving and shooting with Arcs, I think, helps a lot of new players get tokens out and do things more simply in the game. Like, okay, I'm going to move and shoot with this full art team. Oh, I'm not quite at range 3, but my sniper is, and I have an aim, and sharpshooter 1, might as well take a shot. Or, oh no, I had to double move, didn't shoot anything, but I have 2 aims, I can share this with my other clones, whatever. Wookiees are same thing, let me press the W key, especially the melee version, and go towards you. So, super fun units, so don't get me wrong, please play them if you want to, and I think especially the arcs have more room to impress me in terms of the errata being not too recent anymore, but enough that we may see some cool lists pop up that people haven't really thought of yet. Wookiees have been around and been the same for a while, so I'm not really expecting too many surprises there. All Special Forces options restrict list building greatly. This is easily my biggest thing when I say these are lackluster and they're a little disappointing. They're just so expensive, and everything in this faction is already so expensive that I can't really justify bringing like 3, 4 ARC Troopers or 3 Wookiees or anything like that. I can have fun with it, I can try it, but then the rest of my list is just bare bones. And that's kind of what sucks mostly. in terms of list building with these units. You could maybe bring like one full unit of arcs and have a fleshed out list behind that, but after that you start losing activations and upgrades on other things that are equally as good and probably better. So that's what hurts me the most. Like when I want to try my super cool fire support range 3 Wookie list with a Z6 RPS, cool, here's 25 dice, impact 3, pierce 1. No, like that's my one shot. And what I mean by that is when I pour all those points into that idea, that significance of, ooh, let me fire support this RPS unit in with this Wookie bowcaster unit at range 3. Awesome. Here's, almost 200 points worth of a shot, and I killed 2 Dark Troopers. Or I killed 3 Dark Troopers, right? So that's just what sucks, because then the rest of my list is like, okay, well, I've got 2 naked cores, they're gonna aim dodge, okay, wait a minute, I don't have anything else to shoot. So, not saying that's the drasticness that I'm describing, but that's what it feels like a lot of times, is I pour into this idea, these cool Special Forces units, and then I have nothing left to play with. Expansion faction, the Special Forces options are no exception, if not even more so. I don't necessarily think that they need things like a points decrease. I just think if I'm going to have to justify bringing a full Wookiee unit over, maybe another 30, 40 points for like Anakin, I need a little more love. I need a little more reason to bring my ARC troopers, and yeah, that's pretty much it. I don't see myself picking these units over a lot of the other things the faction has to offer, but they are super cool, they are super fun, so if you do like these units, please take time to play them and ignore everything I said, okay? So, hope you guys are enjoying these videos. I'm actually probably going to release another one soon. Got caught up with finishing up college and whatnot, so we're probably going to do a different kind of video as well. You guys let me know in the comments what kind of video you guys would like to see. I'm really thinking about doing a tips and tricks video for new players, but if you guys would also like to just see a general tips and tricks video for all players, I'm more than happy to do that too. Go check out Average Jerry's Game Shop. He's got an awesome, or sorry, not Average Jerry, Jerry's Game Shop. Go check it out. He's got awesome battle reports, everything like that. He's got good budget buying videos as well as new units being released. At the end of this report card video, I will do all of the new units that have come out. By the time this is over, I expect that Ahsoka will be the last thing to come out, so I will do all that stuff. Also plan on doing all the battle forces for those of you asking. I will specifically go into details about talking about things like HRUs, because they almost deserve their own video. But hope you guys are having a good time. Hope you guys are enjoying these. Let me know anything you'd like me to change. Last thing in the comment below, let me know what your favorite unit in Star Wars Legion is. If you did, there might be a surprise later. Bye. You guys have a good one.